Remember that creamy swirl of Jell-O Pudding Pops or the neon blast of high-C ecto cooler in your lunchbox? We all begged our parents for these snacks, until suddenly, they just disappeared. Blockbuster treats like PB Max rocketed to $50 million in sales, only to vanish because the Mars family didn't like peanut butter. Some fell to health crazes, others to boardroom whims or expiring movie deals. These vanished foods shaped childhoods and rewrote supermarket history, and their disappearance reveals a whole lot more about America's changing tastes than you might think. Why did our favorites really vanish? And could any of them survive today's world? The story starts with the rise and sudden fall of radical treats. In the early 1980s, the freezer aisle became a battleground. Jell-O Pudding Pops arrived with a promise: ice cream texture, pudding flavor, and the kind of creamy swirl that made every after-school snack feel like a TV commercial. Bill Cosby's voice was everywhere, urging kids to beg for that blue and white box, while parents weighed the sugar count against a rare moment of silence. The bars themselves were soft, cold, and somehow never icy. A marvel of food engineering, wrapped in waxy paper that stuck to your fingers on humid days. For a decade, pudding pops sold by the millions. But as the low-fat craze swept through kitchens, Kraft's own research showed parents backing away. Focus groups in the late 1990s told a blunt story. Children still picked pudding pops, but parents recoiled at the sugar and artificial flavors. By the early 2000s, the treat was gone, leaving behind only memories and a parade of inferior imitations. Meanwhile, Mars took a different path to extinction. PB Max thundered onto shelves in 1989, a peanut butter lover's dream. Thick cookie base, oats, real peanut butter, and a chocolate shell. Ads promised extreme flavor, and for a while, it worked. PB Max raked in $50 million a year. But success didn't matter in the Mars boardroom. According to former executives and the oral histories, the Mars family just didn't like peanut butter. John and Forrest Mars Jr. had grown up without it and refused to let the company become a peanut butter brand. No health panic, no sales collapse, just personal taste enforced from the top. PB Max vanished by 1994, leaving fans baffled and rivals like Reese's to dominate the peanut butter aisle. Two blockbuster snacks, both wiped out, one by the age of nutrition labels, the other by a family's stubborn palate. Would either stand a chance today? In a world obsessed with protein bars and nostalgia, maybe. But only if the right people are willing to eat them. Lunchboxes in 1989 were never the same after high-C ecto cooler hit the shelves. Suddenly, every cafeteria table had a flash of neon green, the kind of color that didn't exist in nature, but somehow felt right next to a Ghostbusters thermos. The drink itself was a citrus punch, but no one really cared about the flavor. Kids but wanted the box with Slimer's face, grinning like he knew a secret. The marketing team at High-C had landed a windfall, striking a deal with Columbia Pictures just as Ghostbusters 2 was about to launch. For more than a decade, Ecto Cooler rode the wave of Saturday morning cartoons and plastic lunch bags, its radioactive glow a badge of playground cool. The secret to Ecto-Cooler's power wasn't just the taste or the color. It was the movie tie-in. The licensing agreement gave Hi-C a direct pipeline to every kid who'd ever shouted, "Who you gonna call?" But even slime has a shelf life. The original deal included a sunset clause, meaning that when Ghostbusters faded from the spotlight, so would the drink. By 2001, with no new movies and the franchise drifting into nostalgia, Ecto-Cooler quietly drained from grocery store coolers. There was no dramatic recall, just a slow fade as the licensing rights expired and the world moved on. Behind the scenes, another force was gathering. Parents started to worry about artificial dyes and sugar, reading labels that listed yellow 5, blue 1, and a parade of sweeteners. Ecto-Cooler's neon punch, once a symbol of fun, began to look like a warning. Would a drink like this survive today? Maybe, if it came with a zero sugar promise and a retro tie-in. But in an era of organic juice boxes and Instagrammable snacks, the age of Slimer's green mustache might be gone for good. Keebler's Magic Middles arrived with a promise no other cookie could match: shortbread on the outside, a gooey fudge or peanut butter center hidden within. It sounded simple, but the secret was pure engineering. In a Chicago test bakery, lead scientist Jay Van Laar and his team spent months trying to solve the puzzle. How do you get a liquid filling inside a crisp cookie shell at factory speed? The answer came in the form of a patented process, US 4000E entered to 35,118, where dough was shaped, partially baked, then injected with molten chocolate before a final bake sealed everything inside. On paper, it was a triumph. In practice, the machinery was temperamental. Filling heads clogged, dough misaligned, and every misfire meant a ruined batch. Line workers called it the cookie volcano, thanks to eruptions of chocolate whenever the pressure spiked. Downtime for cleaning and recalibration became routine, sometimes halting production for hours. Each magic middle cost up to a third more to make than a regular sandwich cookie, and every lost minute on the line chipped away at the bottom line. Even so, the R&D team took pride in their creation. Oral histories recall the day the machines were powered down for good, with staff standing by, silent, as the last cookies rolled off the belt. By the mid-90s, Keebler quietly retired the Magic Middles. In an era obsessed with cost-cutting and efficiency, there was no room for a cookie that needed its own troubleshooting team. Today, the patent still sits in the archives, a relic of snack food ambition, and a reminder that sometimes the most magical ideas are the hardest to keep alive. The first thing you noticed about Planters cheese balls wasn't the taste, it was the can. Bright blue, topped with a yellow lid, and sturdy enough to survive a fall from the top shelf. For kids in the late 80s and 90s, that can was a badge of honor in any pantry. But behind the neon orange dust and crunch was a problem only a supply chain manager could love or hate. Stan Burge, who ran the Suffolk, Virginia line for years, remembers the daily dance with the canning machine. Every shift started with a checklist. Check the extruder, calibrate the cheese dust sprayer, and, most important, pray the cans and lids arrived on time. Unlike bagged snacks, cheese balls lived and died by their packaging. The can wasn't just a marketing gimmick, it was a logistical headache. Tin plate prices, which hovered around $600 a ton in 2004, shot up to over $900 by 2006. Each can cost at least 5 cents more than a bag, sometimes closer to a dime. And when you're filling millions a year, that gap eats through profits fast. Stan's team would scramble to keep the line running when a shipment of lids was delayed, sometimes shutting down for hours while the cheese puffs piled up waiting for their metal homes. Quality control added another twist. Cheese oil had a way of gumming up the canning heads, so after every run, the machinery needed a deep clean. Miss a spot, and the next batch would stick or spoil. Stan owned that the only thing more temperamental than the can line was the cheese powder itself. By 2006, with steel costs still rising, and Kraft steering planters back to its nut roots, the blue can became too expensive to keep on shelves. Workers on the last day filled their lunch bags with the final batch, knowing the classic can would soon be a collector's item. In 2018, planters brought cheese balls back for a limited run. The cans looked the same, but supply chain managers everywhere probably broke into a cold sweat. Would cheese balls survive today? If they switched to bags? Maybe. But then it wouldn't be the snack we remember. Sometimes it's the packaging that makes the memory stick. In 1991, McDonald's tried to rewrite the rules of fast food with one bold word: pizza. The McPizza wasn't just a menu item. It was a logistical dare. To pull it off, stores installed custom conveyor ovens, cleared counter space, and trained crews to wash and ladle sauce, all while the regular burger line kept humming. On paper, it sounded like a family meal miracle. In practice, it was a test of patience. Every McPizza took 6 to 8 minutes to bake, a lifetime in a place where fries hit the tray in under 60 seconds. Louisville store manager logs from that year read like dispatches from the front lines. Lines stretching out the door, kids melting down, parents checking their watches, and a steady chorus of complaints. One manager, quoted in a 1991 news segment, summed it up. It was fast food, except for the pizza. The kitchen was a study in chaos. 2 production lines, one for pizza, one for everything else, competed for space and staff. The new ovens needed constant cleaning, and toppings meant extra prep and more ways for things to go wrong. Franchisees grumbled about wasted ingredients and spoiled dough. Even the best-run stores couldn't shrink the wait time. For a brand built on speed, every extra minute was a problem that no amount of melted cheese could fix. By 1993, the McPizza experiment had fizzled. Most locations pulled the plug, hauling custom ovens out the back door and returning to burgers and fries. The lessons stuck. Novelty only works if it fits the system. Would McPizza stand a chance today, when customers expect even faster service and kitchens run with military precision? Maybe as a limited promo or a drive-through curiosity. But the Golden Arches learned the hard way. Pizza is slow food, no matter how you slice it. Dunkaroos burst onto the scene in the early 1990s, combining cookies and neon frosting in a lunchbox-sized package that promised more than just a snack. Commercials featured energetic kids and a cartoon kangaroo, selling the idea that snack time was a playground. For a few years, Dunkaroos were the currency of the cafeteria. The blue icing tubs were coveted, and the cookies themselves became a symbol of snack time status. But as the decade wore on, school nutrition policies shifted. Ingredient lists came under scrutiny, and the sugar-laden dip and cookie combo started to look out of place. By 2012, Dunkaroos disappeared from shelves, leaving behind only memories and empty foil trays. Yet nostalgia doesn't fade easily. In the late 2010s, a groundswell of support emerged online. One petition drew over 20,000 signatures, calling for Dunkaroos to return. Former child actors from the original commercials found themselves fielding questions about the legendary blue icing. General Mills eventually responded, bringing Dunkaroos back in 2020. The new version promised simpler ingredients, but the spirit of playful snacking remained. Dunkaroos survived the new era of stricter snack aisles, buoyed by the power of nostalgia and a generation eager to relive a piece of their childhood. Sizzlian, meanwhile, never got a second chance. Launched in the 1980s as a healthier bacon alternative, Sizzlian offered uniform strips with less fat, fitting perfectly into the low-fat craze of the time. But behind the scenes, production was fraught with challenges. The restructured pork mixture required ultra-clean extrusion lines, and even small sanitation lapses could ruin entire batches. Quality assurance teams struggled with an 18% yield loss, a figure far higher than standard bacon. As real bacon regained popularity and skepticism toward imitation meats grew, Sizzlian quietly vanished by the late 1990s. Today, it exists only as a trivia answer, a reminder of how quickly food trends and health narratives can change. Pepsi Blue hit shelves in 2002, a soda that looked more like liquid candy than anything you would pour at dinner. The promise was bold: berry cotton candy flavor, a neon blue so bright it could stain your tongue for hours, and ads aimed straight at teens who wanted something different. But the color was not just for show. Pepsi Blue owed its electric hue to Blue One, a synthetic dye that by the early 2000s was at the center of a growing food fight. Health advocacy groups filed petitions with the FDA, pushing for new studies and warning that Blue One might cause reactions in sensitive kids. The Center for Science in the Public Interest, among others, pointed to animal studies and European restrictions, arguing that American families deserved a closer look at what was in their drinks. In Europe, the story was even trickier. Several countries, including France and Norway, banned blue one outright, forcing Pepsi to skip entire markets or reformulate. U.S. regulators reviewed the petitions, but ultimately ruled the dye was safe at approved levels. Still, the headlines stuck, and parents began to eye the soda's ingredient list with suspicion. Internal taste panels at PepsiCo recorded a split verdict. Kids loved the wild color, but it is found the aftertaste off, and the look unnatural. Sales started strong, then fizzled. By 2004, Pepsi Blue disappeared from American shelves, a victim of both sluggish demand and the growing backlash against artificial colors. Would a soda like this survive today, in an era of clean labels and Instagram filters? Maybe, if it swapped out the dye for something organic, or leaned all the way into its status as a forbidden fruit from the era of blue tongues and no-nonsense snack aisles. Altoids sours didn't just fade away, they left behind a trail of obsessed fans and empty tins. After their quiet discontinuation in 2010, a strange economy sprang up online. Suddenly, those little round tins, especially the elusive tangerine flavor, became collector's gold. eBay listings started at $20 and sometimes soared past $150 for an unopened pack, with buyers trading in the hope of reliving a single puckering taste. Online petitions gathered thousands of signatures, all pleading for a comeback. One fan site even posted a running tally of tins spotted in the wild, as if tracking an endangered species. The comments read like love letters, memories of after-school dares, office desk stashes, and the perfect balance of sweet and sour that no other candy quite matched. Even years after the last tin rolled off the line, Altoids sours managed to unite a secret society of sour candy superfans, each convinced their favorite flavor was the best, and none willing to settle for the knockoffs. Would a candy like this stand a chance in today's world of TikTok trends and limited edition drops? If the bidding wars and fan campaigns are any clue, scarcity has only made the memory sharper and the craving stronger. In 2004, Jell-O Pudding Pops, once a $300 million brand, vanished from freezers across America. As we've seen, every product in this countdown disappeared for a specific, documented reason. Executive preferences ended PB Max despite strong sales, while costly packaging doomed Planters cheese balls. Licensing contracts spelled the end for high-C Ecto Cooler, and health trends finished off Sizzlean. Yet not every question has an answer. Mars has never fully detailed why PB Max was cut, and Keebler's Magic Middles patent files still leave gaps about the exact production failures. Today, nostalgia drives internet petitions and eBay bidding wars for Altoids sours and Dunkaroos, proving that childhood snacks hold lasting power, even when the recipes or reasons for their demise are lost to time. The evidence shows these foods were more than treats. They marked moments in culture, business, and public health. Their stories remind us how quickly tastes and trends can change. But the memories remain, sealed in commercials, packaging, and every shared lunchbox story.